So I'll go ahead and get us kicked off here. Welcome, everybody. This is our CPP Study Break. How this usually works is uh, I'm here to kind of facilitate. I monitor the chat window for any questions that you may put in chat. You can ask your questions either through the chat, or if there's a break in the conversation, or if you're talking about a related question, you could just shout it out. We'll be glad to hear you. Um, Chuck Odom is our he's our resource guy. He will, if we start talking about a resource, he'll find the resources that are approved by PPA, and he'll put them in the chat so you can go back and find them after the call. And then today, as I've said in the past, we're trying to get you guys to kind of know all of our liaisons, and kind of be familiar with that. Today, Guy T from the Dallas area is going to lead us in discussion. So, welcome, Guy.
Good morning, good morning. And Don, I like the tie. Very nice. I feel so underdressed now.
I'm actually in the office right now, so I'm at work,
okay.
taking my lunch break.
Gotcha. Well, I will try to be brief. Anything else, Chris? Any other housekeeping we may have overlooked?
No, I think we're good. As you bring up what we're going to talk about today, I think that'll help a lot.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what I got then. And let's jump in there. And page up. Come on. There we go. Can you see the candidate handbook, folks?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent.
We got you.
All righty. Well, as we go through this next hour, I am going to be using this candidate handbook as a resource for a number of reasons. Let me just give you a little bit of preface on it before we get into it too far. In the meantime, those of you who are following along, you can go to the pppa.com page /CPP, or in just a second, I'll show you more. And of course, Chuck, I'm guessing, is already grabbing the link of where this is and going to post it into chat, because that's just how good Chuck is. But the candidate handbook, for those of you who are at any point within the CPP process, can be an extremely valuable resource for a number of reasons. Everything I'm going to show you in here, in this handbook, it's only an 11-page handbook. That's it, extremely brief, 11-page handbook. But it's a great resource that was already compiled for PPPA on our behalf and for your use as you go through the process. Just like when you visit the PPA site, it clearly delineates the basic 4 steps of the process, which one would be declare, okay, not Claire, but declare, exam, image, and recertification. So as I go through this quick little 11-page document, feel free to make me pause, throw it in the chat, and Chuck will bring it up to my attention if nothing else, and or Chris. And for that matter, just speak in if need be, and I'll try to slow down as much as I need to there. But this particular 11-page document, what I'm going to just walk you through, is a great guide, but not very well known. And by the way, just for an FYI, for those of us who are liaisons as well, already reached out to Julia, already got a response. And the little bitty link that Chuck's probably going to show you here in just a little bit where it is when he throws it into chat, it may be improved very, very soon. You'll find that this candidate handbook link isn't very noticeable if you're not really paying attention to it. And so, again, Julia is already making actions on making it far more visible. But let's just go through the guide. And again, those 4 different steps, declare, exam, image, and recertification. And as we do, I think you'll see the value of this document, why you'd want to use it. But I bet you it's going to also kind of provoke some questions. So feel free to jump in as we go along. Again, it's just 11 quick pages. And as you can see, here's that same thing I was just talking about a while ago about how it follows the steps. Number 1, there's that exam overview. Then you got the technical image evaluation. And since they know that needs more than just its own little page, you would go to the evaluation quick guide, as well as the image evaluation checklist. Now, some of these are repetitive documents that you will see other places on the site. But again, this 11-page thing helps you focus on the process, not the search. Because if you don't use something like this, you're going to be going all over the place, okay? It also, again, gives you resources once you become a CPP, because once you become a CPP, you want to make sure that everybody knows about it. So it'll say Don Davidson, comma, CPP. Doesn't that even sound good, Don? And when you do get that designation, make sure that you grab the prepared press release and throw it in front of everybody. I was fortunate to have it publicized, oh gosh, at least a half a dozen different documents. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my web page. Everybody knows all about it, right? So they give you resources to get you there and get you that notification you deserve. And then I mentioned recertification. We'll talk more about that when we get to that one. And of course, folks like the liaisons, you even have quick access to the liaison list because there are well over 100 of them across the country. And you can choose to use the one that's nearest you, if that makes you feel good. Although with Zoom nowadays, it really doesn't matter where they are. But the liaison list will help you find any and all. And if you don't find the answers you want, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. But you'll see Chuck and Chris and all the other folks that are here as liaisons will be on that list. Okay. The program itself, they just give you a quick little overview of it. Started way back in 1977, which I didn't even realize that until I was reading this guide one day. But for, let's see, what is that mess? 44 years, if I did that right. They've been giving you a way to identify yourselves as someone who's more competent, more confident, and has actually taken those extra steps. You're not the guy doing this just as a side hack. You're not just doing it because you want to make a couple extra bucks here and there, but you're actually making a commitment not only to your craft, but also to your clients. And you want to make sure that that gets across in advertising. You want to consider your pricing changes that may be impacted there. If you've been selling things way too inexpensively, when you earn that CPP, reconsider what you've been doing. Maybe you could take it up a notch or two, depending on your markets, right? And of course, one of the biggest things that we hear over and over and over again is the confidence you gain from going through this process. You know, the certification process itself, let's start with the exam for example, no pun intended there. But on the exam, as you go through those questions, I'm going to guess a lot of you folks may know, oh, I know that answer. I know this answer. But there's going to be 100 questions. And if you knew the answer to every single one of them, I'd be very impressed. But as you go through them, you're going to find out more about your camera. You're going to find out more about your boxes. You're going to find out more about your lights. You're going to find out more about reflectors, more about your software. And you're going to become a much more well-rounded individual than you would expect. And the nice thing about the process is it's going to accelerate your career as a result. Without exception, I think everybody on this liaison call would probably say the same thing, that going through the process has actually improved them as photographers, especially for their clients, much like image competition might do as well if you were ever to pursue that in your guilds or clubs, et cetera. Okay. The steps, I've already talked about those a little bit, but here's a little bit more detail. Those of you following along, by the way down in the bottom, they got a unique way of doing page numbers. You might see this way down there at the bottom right of your screen, where they put Sherman, our little doll that we take a picture of. My wife likes to call it a little doll. Down there in the bottom, I'm on page 4 of that 11-page guide. But the steps for becoming certified. If you haven't already joined the PPA, please do so. It can make a world of difference in your career. I remember both, well, 3 different things: the Dallas PPA, which is a local subsidiary, the Texas PPA, which is the state subsidiary, I guess you could say, affiliate would be the better word, and then the PPA itself. And without exception, all 3 of them are fantastic for me, for my career. They get you those connections you need and expose yourself to knowledge that you didn't realize existed, because there's so many great ideas coming from all those different resources. Now that second step, though, where it says declare your candidacy. Don, have you already declared? You can just shake your head up and down if you have. Have you already declared your candidacy? Okay. And I can't see everybody's screen, by the way my screen is set up right now. I can't see everybody at the same time. But there's a little debate going on about that. If you're looking at the CPP exam, step number 2, where it says declaring your candidacy, you don't have to do that right away, even though it's step number 2. So that one might be a little out of sequence for some of you. If you would like to go ahead and declare your candidacy, you'll see on there, you're going to do it, and you'll pay a $200 application fee. There's a form you got to fill out, and it's valid for up to 2 years. And right there, you start to see already in this document, that is a link that will take you directly to that form. No, Chuck, I'm not going to go there, but feel free to paste that into the chat if you'd like, sir. But in this particular case, again, some of the discussion within the liaison group ourselves is whether or not to declare your candidacy. Feel free to pursue as many things as you can on the PPA site without logging in, because a lot of that stuff is accessible without having to be an actual PPA member, without having to actually be logged in with a user ID and password, et cetera. Take advantage of that as you want, if that's the way you want to handle your workflow. Okay. They just happen to put it this way where you're declaring your candidacy. That's accelerating a little bit, but with 2 years to go, you got lots of time anyway. You determine your own time frames, your own time schedules. Okay. There are specific dates for image submission, as we discussed when we first came into the call. And there are certain guidelines you have to follow on the exams themselves, assuming you may not pass the very first one, you have to wait at least 30 days, that sort of thing. But 2 years is an awful long time. So again, determine your own time frames. If you want to extend it further, just don't declare until you think you're ready to rock and roll. Some folks have waited, declared, and taken the test as soon as possible right after that, for example. That's up to you. To prepare for the exam, there are so many resources. That says many resources. I'm going to say so many with a big so in there because there's so much information. And that's almost one of the obstacles that a lot of folks tell us about. There's so much information that you can use that even the approved stuff, it's mind-boggling at times. And that's where I see a lot of the value in this particular document. It already tells you everything that PPA considers to be important with simple links I'm going to show you in just a little bit. So as we go through the rest of these pages, I'll show you where there's links that'll take you directly to what they consider to be important, as well as some extracurricular stuff you may want to consider as well. You know, once you get to taking the exam and you feel you're confident, right, go online and register. You can either do one in person in rare circumstances with COVID going on, or you can do it online. If you're going to do it online, we'll get to that here in a little bit, but you would sign up with a group called ProctorU. They're an industry, they're in an industry of their own where they do all sorts of different proctoring for all sorts of insurance companies, sales groups, all sorts of different things. That's their thing, is being a proctor for someone at their own desktop, for example. Okay. As a result, you have to pay a small $25 fee if you do the online exam. But if you're in a hurry, if you don't want to wait, or maybe you're one of those folks who doesn't like a sit-down exam with somebody sitting not too far away, whatever you like, you can either do an in-person when those are available. By the way, I will tell you that one is going to be occurring at the end of Texas School, which is the thing going on in Addison, Texas, and it will be on the final day of Texas School. If you'd like more information about that, we can follow up on that as well. But you pick what type of exam you want to take. Again, just remember that when you take the exam, you can do it either in person when available, or you can go through ProctorU and sign up at more convenience. After you've taken the exam, successfully completed that exam, you see it mentions 70 or above, that's when you consider your image evaluation. No rush. Again, you got 2 years to complete the entire process. So if you nailed the exam your very first time and it's only been a couple of months into the 2-year schedule, you got a long time to get it taken care of. Okay. But a lot of folks jump right on the image evaluation because it's fresh in their mind and they want to get past that little energy, right? They want to get to take advantage of a burst of energy and get it taken care of. Image evaluation process will go into more details, but as you can see even on this page, you can submit it anytime within your 2-year candidacy period. And if for any reason you don't make it within that 2-year period, you can even do an extension at a reduced cost. Okay. Now, before I go to page 5, any quick questions? Because I can't see everybody. Chris, Chuck, anybody got any questions I need to?
I have a real quick comment, and you touched on it. I wanted to clarify it. You were talking about declaring your candidacy, preparing for exam, and taking the exam as kind of an order. And one thing that, as liaisons, and it is supported by PPA, is you can start to prepare for your exam before you declare. And a lot of those, and this is what Guy was saying, a lot of those resources are available if you're, even before you're a member of PPA, but I think a lot of them you have to be a member of PPA to get to prepare for the exam. But the time to declare for the exam, because of the 2-year period, the time to declare your candidacy is right before you take the exam. I would think that would be your best step and best plan to take action, because then you get the full benefit of the 2 years.
And to build on what Chris is saying, like you can buy the London and Upton book on Amazon if you want.
You're a little ahead of me, Ron.
That is not a quick read. That is a read that will take you some time to go through. So
right.
I'd rather have that be done before you declare than try to spend part of your 2 years working your way through that book.
Yep. All right. Thank you for the ads there, gentlemen. And that's what I mentioned, folks. Whatever your workflow is, whatever you feel consider comfortable. And again, 2 years, long time, you decide, do I want to do 3 months of prep and then jump in? Do I want to do a day's worth of prep? I just had a photographer just the other day said, hey, can I take the exam ASAP? Said, if you think you're ready, sure. That was their skill set. Of course, that photographer is also a master photographer with skill sets out the wazoo that we all envy. So in his particular case, who knows? He might nail the exam the very first time. You never know. Okay, anyway, let's see. We were going to jump to page 5, I believe. Okay, and this is where you start to get into all the links. So if you've got this document, follow along with me if you like. But this is where it starts to get into more specifics. All these things up across the top here will take you someplace else. Now, I can click on those if you like. You can follow along at home. But I was just going to describe them at this point unless someone asks otherwise. And Chuck, I'm going to keep you busy if you want to give them all the different links.
Well, I gave them the link to the page that has all these.
There you go. You're the man. All right. The sample test, for example, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this one just for purpose of grin here. And hopefully you guys can see where it just bounced me over to the PPA website. Right, Chuck?
It probably did, but we can't see that. We're still seeing the
document.
You have to reshare your
desktop
screen,
as
guy.
opposed to the tab.
Yep. Okay. Let me see if I can get it going here. Or, come on, new share. And let's see. Whew, boy, these are hard to read. Teeny tiny. How about that?
There it is.
Okay. Now that mentions step 2. There are 4 steps again, but in this particular case, I clicked on sample test, so it took me directly to those. And you'll see there's a bunch of other stuff. Every once in a while, you click one link and it'll actually take you to a page. It gives you 87 different things. But it told you the important thing on that specific page of the document was the CPP sample tests. And if I were to click on that, it'll tell me more. I'm going to see if I can scroll down. There's a lot of stuff on my screen. Okay. And what it just did was just downloaded those sample tests for me, right? You've got an online version. If you'd like to take that online version, you'll notice it not only gives you a version where you can get comfortable with, well, how does the online work versus the written? So if you did pick this particular one, it would show you what the online version looks like, which is kind of cool. You can also just download the sample test itself, no answers, or nod, nod, wink, wink. I would recommend to download the sample test with the answers. Don't necessarily practice with the answers. Come back after you've actually taken the sample test and you'll see that, oh man, I missed this, this, this. But one value that I do see of this sample test with the answers, I posted about this on the page the other day, is with every question, it tells you where'd they get this. Okay, it gives you the resources. And it was interesting in looking at that. The sample test, by the way, is only 50 questions. The real test is 100. But on this 50 question test, with the answer keys on it, when it gave me the answers, 76% of the time, 38 out of 50 questions referred to one book. Okay, if you look at the, if those of you got in the suggested reading, don't worry, we'll come back to it in just a minute. But if you get to the suggested reading list, it gives you a long list of publications that you can use as a resource because they've been used as part of the test. But without exceptions, 38 times out of 50, this was the book, not necessarily this specific version, but this is the London book that you'll hear more about over and over and over. This is the 10th edition. They're now citing, I believe, 11 and 12. And what's interesting as well is even though some of the page numbers may not be exactly the same anymore, so in other words, if I look for something that's on page 187, it may be on page 188 on the other, or it may be on page 200. The content is still there for those things that are on the test, okay? The 11th to 12th versions have actually just rearranged in some cases, and in some cases they took out certain content, but what they took out isn't on the test anyway. So whether you buy the 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever version you can get your hands on, because that book's not very inexpensive, depending on where you buy it. Might suggest half-price books or Amazon or something like that. But it's a great resource. Again, on that sample test, 76% of the time, they went with the London book, okay? They also cited some others. This one is the Monty Zucker book that you'll see them referred to on the sample test. It's about posing and things like that, the great Monty Zucker. And the book may look a little bit dated with some of the images in here, some of the techniques, etc. But the content, as far as the test is concerned, is fantastic, and he is cited within the test. Monty died some years ago, so it's not going to get an update. So just ignore the images that may look a little bit dated, but the content is still solid. And then, Don, another exciting read. If you had any problem with sleeping, I would strongly recommend this book, the Digital Photography book. Okay, this is, let me see, Ben Long. Yeah, the Ben Long Digital Photography book. It's another exciting book to read. I'm thinking, get the kids cuddle up in their beds and et cetera. You read that, and they'll be out in seconds. Okay, but those are the three key books. There's several others, et cetera. Again, you may want to look at the pages and see about yourself, but it drops off dramatically after the photography book. Another book is featured, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times in the 50 questions, and it drops off to 1, 1, 1, 1. So strongly recommend, if you have to pick one, if you got a budget you want to consider, go to the photography book by London, Stone, etc. Okay. Again, grab these tests. Don't cost you anything. If you're a different type of learning, you want to learn off of flashcards, you can go there. There's also additional study guides. I'll talk about those real briefly. First one.
Guy, real quick, I haven't, and I just went to the link. I had never seen the online
sample test
link before. And I didn't register. You have to register for it, and that. Do you know? Have you been to that link?
Yes.
And gone through it? Do you know if it's a full test, and do they offer all? It's not a full test.
No, it's just a sample, kind of like the other ones. And basically, what they're getting you comfortable with is the flow of it. Because if you were to answer the questions, you can go back a page at the very end of your 100 questions. You could go back and review them all before you commit. That sort of thing. It's more about the format. The questions are the same because they're all pulled from the same PPA database, but they're just getting you comfortable with the format itself.
And they do not change like on the since there's like 3 versions of the test. They don't change like they do on the regular online test.
Yeah, they don't rotate. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck, or Chris, excuse me. Flashcards, again, if you want to learn that way. Study guides, let me see, I was getting ready to go there. That first one is a PDF download. Al Alderman is also another deceased individual who, very, very talented. Everybody loved him, but he died a couple of years ago, and his book will not be getting any updates, but it is still available. The content should be pretty accurate. What you may see that might be in there that shouldn't be anymore. The test no longer touches on guide numbers, for example. If you're a flash user, like a Nikon flash or Canon flash, something like that, guide numbers are no longer cited in the test. That may be in Al stuff. Bellows may not be on the test, okay? Because those things have been pulled after Al's content, for example, okay? If you want more current content, that's where you could go to Steve Kozak, who updates his on a regular basis and offers a Facebook group, email chats, webinars, all sorts of different things with his stuff. But his preparation guide is very, very helpful. And I don't know the exact statistics, but I would hazard to bet that people who use his study guide and his process are far more likely to pass the CPP than those who don't. And while you're going through his process, the light bulb's gonna go off a bunch. When you're seeing a test question, you go, I don't get it. You're gonna, oh, that's why they asked that question. Or you see something about your camera and you go, I don't get it. The light bulb's gonna go off. Happens all the time. I'm fortunate enough to sit in a lot of his workshops and co-host things like this Zoom webinar that we're doing right now with Steve. And I see it all the time where the participants, it just illuminates all of a sudden, okay? This next one, CPP Study Kit by Chris Duncan. And by the way, it's Chris without an H. Chris Duncan is out of Lubbock. And like Steve, he's a master photographer, yada, yada, yada. His CP Study Kit is entirely different than Steve's. The content is going to be revolving around the same test, so that they'll all have that in common. But the way he goes about it is different. If you get his kit, you're going to get a series of videos that you can go at your own pace whenever you'd like. And you'll also get 100 and some odd pages of content that you can follow along when you're watching the video. So you'll be looking at the video going, oh, okay, and you can make notes. He's on page 47. Oh, I'm going to take some more notes, etc. So it's a different flow to it while you watch his videos and get a better understanding of it. Steve will also be our guest on March 9th, I believe it was. Isn't that right, Chris? Check one of you guys. Pretty sure that's the date he'll be back.
Yeah, that's what you said, but you meant Chris, not Steve.
Excuse me. Thank you. Chris will be on our call to show you his guide and answer any questions you may have about it. He'll just give you a quick walkthrough of it. Feel free to ask him any questions. He's a master of lighting, a master of photography. He's a master of a lot of different things. So fire away with questions to Chris because he's there to help. Okay. You'll see this repeated over and over again as well. So I'm sorry, somebody asking a question? Oh, heard something there. You'll see this repeated over and over where it says declare your candidacy, submit, recertify, and then FAQs. Take advantage of those. Again, not all pages will be the same, but you will see some things in common, and they always go back to steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right now, I'm on step 2. That's why there's not a step 2 right there. I'm on it as we speak. You could bounce over to page 1, right? You could bounce over to page 3, right? And let me go back down. You could bounce over. Whoops, meant to hit that one, right? So you could find anything you want to know. Again, these are all approved by PPA, so they're great resources to take advantage of. And a lot of this stuff, not everything, but a lot of this stuff is accessible without even being a PPA member, which means you don't have any, you don't have a user ID and a password. So you can still get online and grab a lot of this stuff. You'll also see floaters like this, image evaluation dates, and this goes to what we were talking about a while ago. Normally it's a 2-week process, but they made an exception for all the folks who were frozen and didn't have any electricity. But if you are going to go from the exam to the image submission, you may want to tie your calendar dates and your training or your exam prep and all that kind of stuff around some of these dates. You know, like maybe set a milestone that, okay, by June 4th, I got to get to image. So let me see, how soon do I want to have my exam taken care of? Think about calendarizing it for yourself. These are set in stone, so you know that April 2nd through 16th, they'll do it again, June 4th through 18th, etc. Okay, so put those in your calendar and maybe it'll help you push yourself along. It's up to you because you got 2 years.
So guys, just to clarify, Guy T has bounced off of the book. He's on the PPA website right now. Mm-hmm. So he clicked a link to get onto the PPA website where he's no longer in the candidacy guide.
And I just went back to it just because of that. Okay, so now I'm still back on page 5. You see it down there in the bottom right-hand corner. We got the sample test. They've got videos out the wazoo as well. So you can go there. Don't worry, I'm not going to click on that one. But if you're a video kind of person, you see better than you read, for example, go take advantage of those. There's a ton of videos about lighting, about meters, about setups, flash, all sorts of different things are in there. You've also got keywords, because if you're like some folks, you're going to be thrown by some of the questions because they'll ask something, you go, I don't even know what that means. You may want to go take a look at that. And then there's also the suggested reading list that I just referred to just a minute ago. Not going to click on that one, but if you did go to the suggested reading list, it is going to give you a number of publications. Hey, Chris, which one did I recommend that I bet you do as well? Which one
That
book?
would be Photography by London and Upton, sir.
Yeah, the book, right? Okay, whether you get a 10th, 11th, or 12th, again, they refer to the 11th and 12th nowadays, but I really didn't see a lot of difference other than just some rearranging, and some things have been removed. But you
I
get
did
to pick
put
it.
a link in the chat to where you can buy a digital version of it for $29.99.
Right. That was something that brought to mind a comment that I was going to make, Chuck. There are a lot of different formats of the photography book. You can buy it digitally, like Chuck just suggested. You can buy it in a paperback version. One thing I found very helpful was I bought it loose leaf, which means it's not bound at all. And I went to Office Depot, and you can get a discount because you're a PPA member. And I had them, 3-hole punch it, and I put it in a binder. And what that allowed me to do is to take individual pages or sections out, and I could study individual sections without destroying the book. It also, if you're on the loose leaf version, has larger margins to take notes.
Yep. And by the way, Chuck, do me a small favor if you wouldn't mind in the background. That price point you mentioned, if it's on Amazon, they got to be a little careful because there's a rent version that you may have just been citing.
Right.
Okay?
The one I put was a different link. It's actually from the publisher, and they sell the digital version for $29.99.
There you go. Thank you.
Amazon rents it. If you want to buy it on Amazon, it's $49.99.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Because yeah, one of the when it's a super cheap price, make sure you get what you think you're getting, folks. They're not always Kindle versions. Sometimes they're rental versions where they expect you to give it back. Okay. All right. So let me see. We talked about CPP reading. There's the FAQs. Test specifications. It's kind of funny they put that right there because they're kind of talking about it right here. Okay. Detailed specifications may get a little bit further, but your exam itself, I mentioned a while ago that it is 100 questions. Well, those 100 questions are broken down into segments. And if you look at that breakdown, you'll see that 12% talk about cameras, lenses, and attachments. That means out of 100, there's going to be 12 questions about cameras, lenses, and attachments. Exposure to meters, 15. Lighting, 25%, 25 questions. Composition and design, 25. Digital post-production, 13. Image capture and output, 10. So while it's telling you the percentage, that's also telling you, on average, the mix of questions are going to be 12 for cameras, 25 for lighting, 10 for image capture and output, etc. All right. So maybe that'll help you focus your studies or identify your weak points that you need to overcome. But that's part of why they put that in there, so that you know what's the test going to be about. All right. Once you get to image evaluation, you're going to have to change gears a little bit. Going to go away from an from an exam to showing that you know how to follow directions, that you can successfully master equivalent exposures. Can't say that more than enough. Equivalent exposures, and that you know how to compose in a way that matches specific standards. Okay. What I mean by that is when you're going through the image evaluation, they're going to show you that you have to create 3 images. That's it, just 3 images, and that they need to look like X. Okay. And without going into too much detail on this particular call, and again, I'll take your questions a little bit later on if you like, or you can chime in. But as you go through it, you basically have to match what they're coming up with as closely as possible. It doesn't have to be identical, but you want to use your equipment, your lighting, or natural light for that matter, to match up to what they expect to see. Your equivalent exposures are critical. Oh gosh, I said it again, Chris. Equivalent exposures are very, very critical because they're going to ask you to compose 3 images. Depth of field will be a challenge for you, not a big one, but exposures will be, okay? And so you just need to make it, again, look as much as possible like the examples that they've shown you, okay? Now, I'm going to bring in Chuck on this one again because Chuck's going to tell you just a little bit. I'm going to put him on the spot as well. Chuck's going to tell you a little bit about image evaluations and something that he and other liaisons offer. You want to tell them, quick 30-second commercial there, Chuck?
Yeah, what we do is we take that image evaluation checklist and we set up a Zoom call with you. You share your screen showing your images in Adobe Camera Raw because that is how the evaluators are going to evaluate your images. So they will evaluate it in Adobe Camera Raw. You share your screen and we walk you through that image evaluation checklist.
Which is coming up in a couple of pages, Chuck.
Yeah, it's a short 2-page. There's 10 things you have to be able to check off. And you let us know as we go through it whether you think your images meet all the criteria. Basically, we don't tell you they will. You convince yourself that you have passing images. And if you find a spot where it won't pass, it misses the criteria, then we'll discuss ways. We ask you a bunch of questions really on how you could fix that so it will pass. We don't give you the answers. We just kind of poke you a little bit and get you headed in the right direction. And our success rate has been quite good by doing this.
Yep.
But Sally and I have done quite a few of them, and I think we did in October, we did 14 people and 13 of them passed.
Chuck, what are you charging for that?
We don't charge a thing.
We don't charge.
We do it as part of being a liaison to help people get their CPP.
And that's exactly what a liaison is supposed to do, folks. So when I showed you that CPPA liaison link earlier in the same document, again, you can use somebody that's in your neck of the woods, or you can use Jane Martinez in Arlington, Texas, or any of the liaisons. The liaisons are there for you, whether it's the exam or the image submission. And Chuck's a great example. Chuck and Sally are great examples of going that extra step to help you out. Again, they won't give you the answers, but to help you come to your own conclusions. Okay. And for that price point, Chuck, is there a money back guarantee?
Yes, actually, there is a double your money back guarantee.
Double. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
if your images do not pass, we will refund twice of the nothing that you pay.
There you go. What a deal. But only today. All right. So he mentioned the technical image evaluation and how he'll help you walk through that. He also mentioned that you have to show him things in Zoom. So you're going to want to be comfortable in sharing your screen with him. And you're going to have to be showing him the raw images. All those things are spelled out in this section. You can't submit JPEGs, so he doesn't want to see JPEGs. You have to submit raw, for example. What you'll also see in the image evaluation section is this guide that you need to order that helps you with your order, because you're going to order a kit. That little Sherman that I alluded to earlier down near the bottom, and don't worry, I'll show you another picture here in just a second. You'll order a kit, and it actually comes in 2 boxes. One box with a bunch of gray sheets on it, and then another box with styrofoam balls and a black Sharpie and some crayons and a little doll. And I think I hit all of them right there, if I'm not mistaken. But that ordering guide will help you understand what exactly is I'm going to order. And then a few days later, maybe a week, who knows, you'll get these 2 boxes, one big box that has the sheets in it, gray paper, and the other that has all the rest of the kit. Okay. They'll also walk you through what equipment you need to use and criteria you have to consider. But I'm going to hone in on something here that's part of these resources where I'm making my cursor go off there. You've actually got 3 different types of choices you can make. You only pick one out of either natural, okay, or electronic flash or continuous light. Natural, electronic, or continuous, okay? I'm going to come back to Ron in this case. Ron, are you still with us? Because I'm going to get your 2 cents worth. If you had to choose between natural, electronic, and continuous, which would you prefer? So if you're going to recommend to one of these aspiring candidates, which one would you recommend, sir? Oh, did I catch Ron on mute? Uh-oh, I may have. Well, one of the liaisons, what would you prefer, or what would you recommend, I'll say?
A control freak, so I want electronic because I can control it.
Yeah, but
Say it again, Mia?
flash for me too.
I'm a control freak, so I want to control that light. So electronic flash.
Okay.
And ABN, anything but natural.
Okay, I like the way you put that. And I wanted you guys to hear that because you're almost without exception, I think, Chuck. I don't know anybody who's going to say, oh, you really should do natural light. By far the most difficult of the 3 different ones you can choose from. And again, you're only going to pick one. You're not going to pick all 3. Whether it's electronic, continuous, or natural light is by far the hardest. And I'm going to ask one of the aspirings to jump in. Take yourself off mute for a second and tell me, why is natural light the hardest? Rebecca, you want that one? I can see almost all of you today. I can see your chin and everything.
Yeah, because it's so much harder to control. You can't stop up, stop down. You can't.
Well, I can change my camera, but it, like right now I'm in my office and that window in front of me on the other side of the camera, that window faces west. Is that going to be a problem if I'm trying to do natural light?
I don't know. Yes.
Okay, so if I'm going to use natural light, probably going to need to set up in front of a window. Which window would you guys recommend that that you use, assuming you have one in your house? It could be north, east, south, or west. Is there a specific window that might make it easier, but still wouldn't recommend it?
I think southern exposure is going to be harder light, but there's more of it. So I don't know if that would be better or worse. I don't have a good answer for that.
Well, southern would be good if we were in Argentina. So I'm giving you a clue there. Which one would be the best window in your house? If you got a house that has north, east, south, or west facing windows, which one's the best window? Deb, you want that one? You're declared. Which
I am
window would you
declared.
use?
I would think north.
Because?
I think it's more, I mean, just the way I'm thinking, I just think that it will be more light.
Well,
More
let me ask you this.
light.
If I go into my kitchen area, I've got an east-facing window, and let me see, my time is about 11:42, but the sun's still kind of behind us a little bit. Is that going to cause a problem in the afternoon when I'm still trying to submit my images? Because the sun keeps moving, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no wrong answer, Deb. Don't worry. You're amongst friends.
You know what? Okay, so let me just think this through. So if you're the sun and then the sun.
And Deb, you can phone a friend if you need to.
Street shout out.
Come on, Mia, help me.
Don't overthink it. Just think about what you see naturally. You're trying to overthink. Just
Yes, I am.
think about what you know naturally.
I don't think it'll be a problem.
You don't think what'll be a problem? East-facing window?
No, I think north.
Oh, north. Okay.
But
all right. So
when you move, when the sun, I was trying to answer the question that you had asked if you were in your kitchen and then the sun is moving over.
Yeah, because I got plenty of room to set up in my kitchen area. I got some great big windows that face east. Is that going to be a problem? What do you think, Rebecca? She said north, but would east be a problem if I had to set it up that way? Because not all houses have windows on all sides, right?
I think it would be a problem.
Okay. I'll go ahead and tell you a clue without telling you the answer. If you have a choice, north is a better one because of the consistent light. But even that, what color is the light in the morning? What color is the light in the evening? And especially about for an hour. You guys know about that? In the morning and the evening, something happens to the light as it starts to progress and as it starts to wane on the opposite side. It's waxing and then it's waning, right?
Oh, Chuck, you're too funny.
I can't see what Chuck was doing there. Was Chuck being funny and I missed it?
So in the morning, the light is what color, Deb?
In the morning, the light is white. It's white. Cool.
Cool
Blue.
means to, there you go.
Yeah.
And in the evening, what color is
It's
the
more.
light?
It's
What do we
more.
call that hour?
It's more warm.
It's the same color as the tube you'll get when you pass.
Golden.
Golden.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica. And there's even golden and blue in both parts of the day, depending on where you are, right? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
But because we're on the northern half of the equator, a northern window will give you better consistency. But even that, morning, noon, and night, you're going to see color shifts. You're going to see intensity shifts, right? And because of those things, if you want to do natural light setup, God bless you, but whew, that's the hard way to do it. I actually walked a CPP candidate through natural light only using email exchanges and using Dropbox from Indonesia. And to make matters even more difficult, I'm working with another individual who's trying to do things without a meter. I would recommend you take a look at getting yourself a nice Iconic meter or something like that to make sure that you're ready for this. But I think you heard, Jessica, did you notice how many liaisons said avoid natural light if at all possible?
Oh yes. I avoid it at all costs, actually.
Okay. All right.
So something that hasn't been mentioned, Guy, that kind of, to help the candidates kind of think through this as well. The process of shooting your images takes hours, not minutes.
Yeah.
And so you're looking for consistency for about a full day. So if you're thinking of an east-facing window or a west-facing window, they only have consistent light for maybe at most an hour during the day.
Yep.
Where a north-facing window, and if you have enough light coming in through it, a south-facing window has more consistency throughout the day.
Yep.
Or a
Let's
south-facing window if
yeah,
you've got enough ISO to cover it. Put it that way.
Somebody had a question?
It's Rebecca, yes.
Talk a little bit louder, Rebecca. I can't hear you very well, and I'm not sure if everybody else can.
All right, is that any better?
Nope, not yet.
All right, I'm gonna dangerous.
There we go.
There we go.
Any better?
Yep.
Okay,
Don't have
good.
to scream though. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Why do you need to have it set up for a day? Why is that important if you're only submitting 3 images? If you get it right.
Well, the process itself is more daunting than it may seem, Rebecca. The first time you do it, your images probably won't be right. You're going to shoot for all 3, or maybe you won't even get that far. But even if you shot all 3, when you come back and look at them and go, that didn't right. Maybe you messed up your equivalent exposure. Whoops, I didn't get it to look as close as possible. Not exactly, but as close as possible to their samples. There's so many variables. But if you're like most folks, if it takes you at least an afternoon, or as Chris mentioned, an entire day, just plan on it, okay? It will take more time than you might think just to shoot 3 images.
I was thinking it would take a long time to do the setup, but as far as the...
Well, I assume Chris is talking about the entire thing. Yeah.
Say it again?
I'm going to assume that Chris is meaning setup and shooting the images, because they're all part of one process, because you have to shoot one image, make some changes, shoot a second, make some changes, go to a third.
Yeah, you are correct. I was talking about beginning to end, Guy T.
Right.
I was talking about
taking it out of the box and the whole 9 yards.
Yep. Set it up on the floor. But my experience is, and I think I'm pretty confident that everybody who's passed the image submission experience has been, you start to get picky. And even, it doesn't just end with the first image that you get correct. Then you make your changes. Then you take some images of your next shot, and before you know it, it takes a good long day to do your images. And then, even then, for me, my personal experience was, I wasn't entirely happy after I sat and thought about the images overnight, and I went back the next day. It took me, if I was to add up all the whole time that I did it, I would say it took me a good 5 days of shooting. Now, I didn't pass the first time. I took the image submission the first time that they did the Sherman images, and there was a little bit of controversy, but they were right. And it took me 3 submissions to pass. And the first submission that I did, I probably took 3 days at that, and then each of the other 2 were 2 days or a day. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So
Once you take it, you need to walk yourself through this checklist
I'm getting ready to go there, Chuck.
for each image, and that takes some time.
Yep.
Especially when you realize you got to go back and redo something.
Chuck just alluded to the checklist, so let me go ahead and jump forward. I'm going to move away from page 6 to page 7, and this is what I was explaining a while ago, what you'll be getting in the boxes, okay? You'll get 3 sheets of paper, so you'll be sheets to the wind, and then you'll also get these other things, the styrofoam blocks. By the way, there are 2 different sizes. Whatever they send you is the one they want you to use. There are 2 different types of crayons. If you get 12 crayons, you only want to use 8. And the one that you have to include, whether you use any other crayons, doesn't really matter, but the one that has to be included in your 8 that are appearing in your image is, Chuck?
The black crayon.
Yeah, only the black is the required one. So if you get 12, pick any 8 you want, but make sure the black one is included. Nod, nod, wink, wink, okay? You'll also get a Sharpie marker, and yes, it stinks when you take that cap off, but they're going to ask you to do it anyway. You're not going to use it for writing purposes, so don't worry about that. And then you'll get this Blick hardwood mannequin that is referred to as
Sherman.
That's Mr. Sherman that you'll hear about all the time.
Now, I'd like to clarify, this list has an assumption where it says 3 on the paper, but you don't get 3 if you order it once. You have to order 3 pieces of paper.
And by the way, to what you just said, I checked on that the other day, Mia. If you use the link that's inside this particular guide, it takes you to them all as one kit. And it does come with 3.
Well, that's good because there's been some
Yeah.
problems in the past where people have only gotten
Yeah.
one.
And what she's talking about is those 3 sheets of paper, because you can order them 1, 2, 3. But when I tried the link that was in this guide, it took me to the right page. So we may want to validate that again as well. But your image is going to look something like that. And again, they don't have to look exactly like that, but you'll notice how they got the crayons. Got to look just like that. Again, the colors don't matter as long as one of them's black. Sherman's got to look something like that. The ball's got to be right there. And that marker's got to be right there. Everything that you're getting in that kit has a purpose, and everything has to be as they are showing you in the example. Not exactly, but it needs to look as close as possible. They give you measurements and things like that. Just get as close as you can. Don't have an ulcer over this. Okay.
So in the tips and tricks section of that whole setup, 2 things that I learned very quickly, because I set it up so many times. The first thing, when you get your crayons, tape them or glue them from the bottom so they don't roll around.
Or live in a house that is flat.
Yeah, yeah. Or if you can move those crayons around as one unit, it makes your life 100% easier.
Yeah, because they drive you crazy when you bump the paper. It's like, oh.
Yep. And then the other thing that helped tremendously was I glued a penny or a quarter, a coin of some sort, probably bigger than a dime, to the bottom of that ball. So it doesn't
kind of like
roll
a golf
around.
tee, huh?
Yep. It makes it so that it's stationary. So if you can do those 2 things, you're going to take some time off of your setup.
Yeah, and you'll also see that even in the videos that, remember I mentioned there's a ton of videos you can peruse. You'll see that Jamie Hayes talks about marking certain spots, taking a pencil and just marking where this was or that was, etc. Feel free to do that. Just don't make them part of your image. So I'm guessing like in Chris's example or Jamie's, the marks, the quarter, the penny, whatever it is hidden, because don't submit your images with a quarter sitting in the middle of it. Okay. Again, remember you're only doing option 1, 2, or 3. You're not doing all 3 of them, but option 1 is 3 images. Option 2 is 3 images. Option 3 is 3 images, just using different types of lighting. And as you all heard us say, electronic flash was the one to consider. Continuous light may be super easy. We had somebody just yesterday who was asking about the power output of their lights, and even low powered lights, if they're continuous lights, most lights that are continuous have low power when compared to flash output. Those can work very, very well where you can see what you can get, like the Solix that I'm using from Westcott would work just fine. Or you can use some of those with the old pigtail style bulbs, etc. Just remember your equivalent exposures. Gee, I don't know if I mentioned that, Rebecca. Equivalent exposures, right? Because you can still get it done even on low power. But if at all possible, avoid natural light whenever you can, right? Now, this is just for Chuck. Chuck, I finally turned to that page you keep referring to. You want to tell them more about it, Chuck?
Yeah, this is the checklist that the evaluators will use to evaluate your images. They will evaluate all 3 images in Adobe Camera Raw, the latest version, and the profile will be set to Adobe Standard. Reason they'd use Adobe Standard is Adobe Color.
It's clean.
It's a default.
Right.
It's a much larger gamut, and you have some warmer tones in it. But most cameras are set up to shoot in Adobe Standard. And if you look at it in Adobe Color, that means that your computer and Adobe is guessing at what all the other tones should be.
Right.
And it may not be correct. And plus, if they're going to evaluate in Adobe Standard, you should be evaluating it in Adobe Standard. And you see all those little check boxes there. When we do an image evaluation, we go through each and every one of those and have you check off that box for all 3 images. It only takes us 20 to 30 minutes. But, this is what they use to evaluate your images. So when we do an image review, we use the exact same checklist. And like I said, if if you can go through and you can check off all 10 of the box, your images should pass.
So something to mention that Chuck didn't mention, and to be in line with PPA and how your images are evaluated. When you open your image, you have to open it in Adobe Bridge, because that last item, the metadata item, they need to know what date your image was taken, and Adobe Camera Raw does not show the date metadata. So and if you've shot it within the 90 days, you should be okay. And we may not, as we evaluate your images, we may not say to do that, but just be aware that they are opening your images. They start your images opened in Adobe Bridge, and then they go to Camera Raw from Bridge.
Mhm.
Right. And also remember, to check the date on your camera. If the camera date isn't right, we had an individual couldn't figure out how to change the date on their camera. Their camera was stuck on 2014. And this individual candidate thought, well, if I just let them know that the date on my camera is wrong, they will accept it. Like, no, if it's older than 90 days, it's automatic failure. So make sure, and if you don't know, you can Google how to, any make and model camera, you can Google how to set the date.
Mhm.
And make sure your date is correct, because the one thing you don't want to do is get your images perfect. You check off all 10 blocks, but your date is off by a year.
Yep.
Because as soon as they see that date is more than 90 days out, it's automatically rejected.
Can I add something also? I think one thing that's really good is to not tear down your image right away. If you have the ability to keep it till after you go through one of these checklist evaluations with us. We've had so many people that just right away thought they nailed it, and they just tore down everything they spent hours setting up. And it was just like one little tiny baby change. And so I would just really encourage you, if you could leave it set up until you go through with one of the liaisons, the certification technical image evaluation checklist is going to make it easier for yourself.
The other thing I'd say is, they give you ranges that you can work in, like with focal length, and you need to take all those choices, all those ranges, and compare that to what you've learned all the way along the way to figure out what the best settings are to achieve your expected result. Because as you think about like depth of field, that will help guide you as to what optimum conditions to try to use for your camera settings to get the best result.
Also, just to jump back to what Sally had said about keeping it set up, keep in mind, we're going to look at the 3 images that you say are ready. If one of them isn't quite ready, we're not going to wait for you to retake the image and then show us. What we will do is you let us know when you've got it redone, and we'll take another look. But we're not going to do during the evaluation, stop for you to retake images, because that could take hours.
Right. And we run businesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
All right. So
And
it is
another thing, if I may, Guy, you touched on it. You were saying get yourself a good meter. I had a client who didn't understand that he had to meter his meter to his camera, his lights, get it all kind of married up. And it I don't know why that happened, but it's so much easier to make sure you have all of those P's and Q's done before you try to do this.
Yeah, and you'll see the videos that show exactly how to use the meter. They talk about Sekonic as a brand, but you can use any brand of metering. I wouldn't suggest a phone app because of their quality and their accuracy, but Sekonic makes inexpensive meters. They make some very expensive meters, but using a meter makes life so much, much easier, and it's something you'll be using in your career most likely, okay? It is a little after the top of the hour, so I'm going to jump through the other pages just so you can be aware of what they are, but I am expecting some questions, so let me just jump through some of these here real quickly. I mentioned before, once you become a certified professional photographer, you'll want to take in consideration the page 9 and all the different things you'll be getting and things you can use to make the public aware, your peers aware, etc., including that certificate that you can put in a nice frame, that little sticker like what you see up on my wall, that kind of stuff. Make sure that you promote this across social media, Chamber of Commerce, get in every publication you can think of. They will take press releases and say, sure, thanks, right? They don't mind doing that at all. You will also be looking at recertification. This is a cart way before the horse, but they also have steps that they have already outlined for you on recertification. How do I continue my CPP certification after it expires? Here's how they can do that. Not going to go through all those details, but it could be something as simple as attending a specific event like Imaging USA, or in my case, Texas School, something that happens right here in Texas. A lot of different ways you can earn your credits, and one of those could be being a liaison, so consider that as well. And then any specific questions or concerns that the liaisons weren't available on, or you wanted to take it to another level, Julia Boyd, the lady on the bottom left, knows this stuff like the back of her hand, not the front, the back of her hand. She knows it so well. She could tell you where everything is just like that. Her sidekick is Odessa Sabato. What a great name, isn't it? Odessa Sabato, just love that name. But Julia and Odessa can take care of you. You can reach them by phone. You can reach them by email. They can answer anything and everything really, really quickly for you. Now, it is a little after the top of the hour, but I'm willing to hang around for a little bit if some of the other liaisons are. Chuck, are you seeing any questions in the chat? Anything we need to take care of, sir?
I haven't seen anything. I just wanted to mention you're talking about Julia and Odessa. They are very quick to respond when you ask them a question. Late last week, I found where there was an error in the handbook, and I let them know, and they immediately changed it and reposted it.
Yeah. Hey, Guy T, real quick, we did have a question come up in the chat, and it may be helpful because I know the link to the handbook is a little bit buried. It's kind of hard to find. Can you take people right to where that link is on the PPA site? It's in that
I just put it in, Chris.
top page. Yeah, but that box.
I'm going to show them where
hard
the
to
actual.
find.
Yeah, give me just a second. I will get there.
I got to it from the link that Chuck just put in.
Yes.
Okay, I am going to go back to step 1, and that right there is the mystery link where it says CPP Candidate Handbook right there that I'm making flash, and we'll get my cursor flashing on it as well. That's where you download that book, and the actual link should be matching what you're seeing in chat up there at the top, but the CPP Candidate Handbook link, that little bitty red rectangle you see there, may be going through some changes because of what Chuck mentioned. Julia said that may be made even more obvious about what that is because it was being overlooked by so many people. But that's the book that I just walked through. The CPP Candidate Handbook is right there. I just made it go black, red, black, red, black, red. No profit, profit. No profit, profit. Okay? Use that book for good, not for evil. Use your liaisons.
So, like Guy T said, I'm willing to hang around. I know that we didn't get to any test questions or anything today. I'll hang around and answer some questions a little bit too. And thank you for all of your help today, Guy T. That's a great resource that sometimes we have been overlooking. I know that we kind of discussed that in our meeting, and we'll open the floor up.
Sorry I was late today. So it always starts at 11 my time, I guess. I just was trying to get that figured out. So I was trying to find some of the practice tests, but I haven't joined the Steve Kozak class yet. So that's where I would find the tests, is after I actually purchase that, correct?
Well, Steve has his own versions of practice tests, just like Chris does. Okay. But the practice tests that are on the PPA site are another version of the test. All of them will be helpful in completing the exam, but none of them there are exactly the same.
Okay.
And you don't have to have declared to get to the PPA practice exams.
You do have to be a PPA member to do the online version of their practice test. But even if you're not a member, because I have downloaded the practice test without even being logged in.
Right. But Jessica, maybe where you're going with this, Steve Kozak's program that he has, his guidebook, this thing, right?
Yeah.
His guidebook, etc., and all the other things he will do will greatly increase your chances of successful completion, including his sample test, his extra time that he will give you, etc. So if you're deciding on Steve Kozak or Chris Duncan, great idea.
Yeah, I actually use Steve Duncan's whole program, and when I met him last year at imaging, I talked to him, and his program got me scoring higher than he did.
And you did a hybrid. You said Steve Duncan. Which one was it, Chris or Steve?
Steve.
He's making up people now.
Yeah. Like Chuck Jones, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So I have not declared yet. I'm very hesitant. I have so much to learn. But I didn't find it on the PPA site. Is there like a direct link I could go to find that?
Find what?
The sample test?
Yeah. Yeah, that guide that we're referring to will take you directly to it.
Okay. So in that guide is where I would be able to get the sample tests.
Yeah, when you go in there and you go to page 5 of that guidebook, you're going to see sample test. You're going to click on it. It'll take you right to it.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay? And whether it's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, it still works.
I just posted the link in the chat. Will take you to the page where you can see the sample tests.
Thank you.
But yeah, strongly recommend you get that candidate handbook because it's going to walk you through every single thing. You can go to one guide, click, I'm in there. Click, I'm in there. You're not going to have 27 different pages open. And by the way, a lot of those things you're going to click on when you're in that handbook are actually going to download. So when you click on sample test, don't think nothing happened. Go to your download folder on your computer because it already downloaded it.
Okay.
The screen won't change. You're just going to see, whoops, there's a download.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend, along with Guy T, downloading that handbook because it gives you a one-stop shop for where you'll find all the resources you're going to need.
And by the way, Jessica, by the time you're done, you might have a binder that looks kind of like that. And I don't know how well I can show this to you. Let me see. There we go. I've taken the time to make little tabs. Amazon is ridiculously cheap. It'll get to you stuff tomorrow, right? Okay.
Binders are my jam, so I'm excited.
My CDO is going off. I'm not OCD. I'm CDO. Right.
I've got 2 of them.
I did the same thing, Guy. I have it all. I did it spiral bound so I could just flip it and lay it flat,
Yep, little tabs to jump to this or jump to that.
Yep, and tabs.
Yep.
And of course,
So Mia makes a
you are welcome to come to this group every Tuesday and ask questions.
Mia makes a good point in the chat that Chuck has already provided the link to the guide. So if you go to the chat and download the guide right now, you'll have it right there on your computer. That'd be a good thing to do.
And it looks like Deb Davis. Say it again, James.
I was going to say we have classes we've done in the past that Chris has posted on YouTube as well. You can watch those classes for information.
And it looks like Deb Davis put the Steve Kozak link in there for you as well, folks. But Steve at stevekozak.com is his email, and he can get you signed up in his program that's phenomenal, had great success. And again, Chris Duncan's, nothing bad about that. It's a different style, and he'll be here March 9th to walk you through his version, and you may fall in love with it. Or both. Anything else? You see anything else in the chat, Chuck? Or Chris, either one?
Got a hand raised.
What you got, Rebecca? Don't say why.
All of my questions for today that I had written down were about technical image submission, and you guys have answered, I believe, every one of them and more. I'm so thankful for this group. So, wow, I'm impressed.
Cool.
Steve Kozak videos are not there. I went in to pass a CPP this morning. I have paid. I've done everything I'm supposed to. I've declared. I've done it all. But
Steve at
the videos are not.
stevekozak.com. Make sure that the server isn't giving me a problem, because we had some issues on a technical issue yesterday, and that may have continued today. I know he switched server providers not that long ago. So Steve at stevekozak.com, and see if he's aware of what you're talking about. I saw your post, I think, but make sure that you reach out to him, because he may be having server issues again.
The other
Okay.
thing
He's in
that I have a
Texas, too.
question
Yeah,
about,
he is having,
Rebecca,
Yeah, his
Alright.
website's down right now.
Yeah.
yeah, he
because
is having
Texas.
server issues.
so you are referring to the Steve Kozak videos because of where you are in the process. I was wondering if you were referring to the Jamie Hayes videos.
I was not referring to Jamie Hayes because I've never heard of him. Or
Okay.
her.
He's the
No
guy
problem.
you will see demoing the camera setups. When you look at the PPA site, he's the guy showing you how to meter, how to set up your umbrellas, your Sherman, etc. He's out of Virginia area.
Yep.
My mistake was I printed all of the PPA stuff and didn't realize those were links. So I've got to go back on the PPA and actually use some of that stuff because I haven't before.
And by the way, you can find some of Steve's videos on the PPA site as well. I don't know the exact link to that. I'd have to get it to you, but a lot of his videos were donated to PPA. So if you're on the PPA site, look up Steve Kozak.
They were about 40 seconds long, and you had to go to his
Oh, you have
site.
to be a
You get
yeah.
them for free from him, but you had
Yeah.
to go through his stuff to get them.
Okay. Yeah, he donated a ton of stuff for their archives.
Yeah.
Don, how we doing? You ready to go back to work, or you ready to grab your camera and head out the door?
I'm going to have to drop off here. I appreciate what you guys all talked about. It's helped out a lot.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Okay, it's down to,
I just put a YouTube link in there that'll take you straight to Steve Kozak, all of his videos. It's about 31 of them, Rebecca, if you want that.
And the PPA site has like 40 videos you can look at. Just on CPP.
If you just do it by name too, if you just go to instructor when you're looking for a video on PPA, then you just type in his name and then all his videos will come up.
and Rebecca, you did get his email earlier, right?
I did. Thank you so much.
Okay. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he's having issues. Last night we had a Zoom meeting that when you clicked on the link, it took you to GoToWebinar. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Anything else from you, Miss Jessica or Deb, either one?
No, this was really good today, even though I'm not at the image submission yet, but I got a lot of notes from class today.
Good. I like the way
Knowing
she
what
said that.
to
It's been good
expect.
today. Like the other
Yeah.
one sucked. Is that what you're telling me?
No, not at all.
Hold up there.
Yeah.
Chris know I'm saying that. That's not what
No.
Knowing what to expect, I think also helps, because you have to marry
Good to see you,
the
John.
knowledge, the test to the images, you know. So knowing
Mhm.
where
Hey,
you're
James.
going with that knowledge is
Yeah.
is extremely important.
And thank you for your compliment, Miss Deb. The liaisons that put this together.
You can't get me in
wonderful.
trouble with Chris. We both from Michigan.
That's right.
Well, it's like, when you tell somebody, hey, you've lost weight. Were you saying I was heavier? No.
All right, guys. Take care.
All
Good to
right.
see you.
Take care.
And can I ask another question before you guys
Yes.
go?
Sure. What you got, Rebecca?
Struggling with the bellows factor, which is something I am never going to use in my whole entire life, but I know it's on the test, so I don't want to go in not getting it.
I don't think it's on a current test anymore. Bellows and guide numbers have both been pulled.
I don't remember seeing
All right, so I can
no
just take
guide
that off
numbers
and not
when
worry about it.
I took it. I
What'd you say, Chuck?
bellows.
Yeah, I don't think guide numbers, bellows are on there anymore. And Steve and I, we've had that discussion, but I believe bellows have been removed. And if there is a question about it, it's maybe going to be 1. So you'll score a 99, or actually, don't get your name wrong. That'd be a 98, right?
So I don't need to know about bellows at all.
Well, you go into the Stone book and read about them, because it is referred to in the, do you have the Stone book?
Oh yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, you'll find what you need to know in there because it is referred to in that, was referred to, as say, but I don't believe it or guide numbers, either one. And guide numbers I would still use today. So why they took it out, I don't know. But bellows is a little old fashioned by today's standards.
My comment back on that, Rebecca, even if it's not on the test, it may be something that you would, you may practically end up using. So it may be worth learning a little bit about. And where you would learn and use bellows factor today is if you do any type of macro work, and extreme macro work with they have bellows that fit on the front of cameras to make a normal lens into a macro lens. And that may be where you would use that. But a lot of photographers who were using a 4x5, like Guy's showing right now, a 4x5 8x10 camera, they're still around, and you can still get them on eBay, but not used widely.
Yeah, that's page 281 of what book?
The London Upton book.
And it may not be on 281 on your specific copy, but if you paid attention to those couple of pages, I'd be willing to bet you'd get that question right.
I was just struggling with the math and if
By the way,
there was a simpler way of figuring it out, that's all.
No. It does not refer to Admiral Bellows from I Dream of Gina, by the way. That is not one of the possible answers.
You're dating yourself, Guy.
Or Colonel Bellows.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Colonel Bellows is not a correct answer.
By the way, Guy T said, if it's one question, you got 99 questions right. But let's think about the math even further. You got a 25% chance of getting that question correct by just guessing.
The other two, because there's two that are obviously wrong, one that's close, one that's truly correct. So now you're down to even better odds, right?
Yep.
And even if you never use bellows, all knowledge is good.
Mm-hmm.
I was just struggling with nailing the math, and I just didn't know if there was a simpler way of doing it because you guys are good teachers. So I just thought if there was a simpler way for me to grasp it.
Math-wise, I would concentrate more on your exposure equivalents and on your what's that one I'm trying to think of your light fall off, your
inverse square.
That's the one.
That killer.
Brain block today, I tell you what.
Anything else, Miss Rebecca? You always have great questions.
Sir, that's what I need today. I can't wait till next week because I'll have 6 more.
Okay.
And I'm just so amazed that you hit exactly what I wanted today because I'm totally freaked out about the image submissions, and this really helped a lot.
Well,
and
next time you
I cannot wait to sign up with you guys.
next time you talk with Julia or Odessa, say thank you because I use their content.
Great.
All right.
Anything else, boys and girls? Going once, going twice, and I'm out.
All right, guys. You guys have a good week. We'll see you back here next Tuesday at 12 Eastern time. Jessica.
Yes, I'll be there right. I'll be right this time.
All right, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
See y'all next week.
Thank you, folks.